Hello explorers, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, I appreciate your time. There's been a huge transformation and recent development in regards to the relationship between the country of South Africa and the United States of America. And South African delegation that traveled to the United States of America were moving there with regards to the Troika discussions, as South Africa is currently leading the G20. More importantly, this conversation and interaction has been modeled to some kind of an initial discussions between South Africa and the country of the United States of America. The United States have no other option but listen to the country of South Africa's own viewpoint. According to media reports, the countries are beginning to talk from an initial level as we all continue to see how this relationship will progress. Let me say this, South Africa is a strategic partner for the United States of America in terms of trade. Both countries did billions of US dollars in terms of economic relationship, and South Africa is strategically located in the continent of Africa. South Africa is a member of the BRICS countries group, and more importantly, a solid member of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, what you hear called AGOA.
Successful engagement with member states at the United Nations on South Africa's G20 priorities, Dango and his team travelled to Washington, D.C. for what was billed as a G20 Troika meeting that now appears to have encompassed bilateral engagements between South Africa and the United States. According to DIRCO's statement, the SA delegation met with the White House National Security Council's Africa Director, the Acting Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, as well as representatives from the U.S. Treasury Department. DIRCO striking an optimistic tone, indicating that these dialogues would assist in refining the U.S. administration's understanding of South Africa's position on critical matters and in fostering a more nuanced perspective. The delegation addressed the issues related to U.S. concerns about alleged human rights violations in South Africa, particularly in the context of certain minority groups, and the Land Expropriation Act's nil compensation clause as a means not to facilitate unlawful land seizures and undermine property investment, further explaining in detail how that process would work. Framing the discussions as cordial, DIRCO says they also addressed misconceptions on what had been presented by some groups as race laws designed to undermine minority rights, providing information on the structural inequalities that continue to frame the country's broader landscape, arguing that the post-apartheid administration was constitutionally mandated to correct injustices of the past towards greater human dignity, equality, and the advancement of human rights consistent with the Constitution and the rule of law.
The country of South Africa, despite its particular focus in having these discussions with the country of the United States of America, irrespective of the lambasting by the United States of America's President Donald Trump and Marco Rubio making some unproven comments in regards to what's happening in the country of South Africa. Despite all of this accusation that has been debunked by analysts, by media, and other particular officials, and some experts who are from South Africa themselves, it is important to note that despite this discussion, the country of South Africa has reiterated again, according to media reports, that they will not move an inch with regards to that particular ICJ conversation in The Hague in the Netherlands regards to Israel and also the country of Palestine, and more importantly Hamas conversation going back and forth.
SABC News also understands that South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice alleging genocide by Israel in Gaza also came up, with an appreciation that the case would not be withdrawn. All this as South Africa's Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Parks Tau indicated that he would be seeking engagements with US officials about the imposition of tariffs that undermine the preferential benefits countries including South Africa enjoy under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, including recently announced tariffs targeting automobile and auto parts imports into the United States that could hurt some 64% of SA exports under the current free trade agreement.
South Africa has said it really wants to have discussions with the United States of America to let the US understand its own point of view on what's actually going on. There's been too much back and forth and a lot of other very important strategic conversation which does not serve both countries. South Africa has strong relationship with the country of China and one of its most high trading partner, and the United States of American companies have always used South Africa as a landing spot, like I've pointed out. More importantly, this discussion in the United States is still at the initial phase, but more importantly again, it gives a room for the country of South Africa to illustrate, to clear out the air, to say what's out there and where South Africa stands with regards to its own strategic engagement. It is important to note that the country of South Africa, to an extent, has its own position that the United States of America's government may not agree on. If comments are coming out from what the country of South Africa described as megaphone diplomacy, then there's going to be a problem. It is about time that countries sit together and talk about strategic important issues and address concerns and make sure that facts matches what's happening on the ground. So this particular interaction, or the first initial discussions, is important as the delegation from the country of South Africa using the G20 module conversation and talking about the Troika as the country of South Africa would hand over to the United States of America's government, looking at the G20.
In essence, a positive tone being struck by Durko here following meetings in New York and Washington, D.C., calling the engagements fruitful, and that would now be carried out at various levels of government pursuant to the February 7th executive order issued by President Donald Trump. This includes positioning the current South African administration as a strategic partner of the United States, after a strategic dialogue was launched between the two countries as far back as April 2010. Shervin Briceby's SABC News, New York.
It is vital to note that South Africa at the moment is one of those countries in the continent of Africa that has informed and told the United States very uncomfortably when the US goes wrong in several areas. And a number of African nations are observing the way the United States of America is interacting with the country of South Africa. The South African government as well has also come out clear, considering the expulsion of its ambassador, Enrahim Rasool, that the country of South Africa to an extent has its own international position and the country will not waver when it comes to engaging the United States of America. But make no mistake, South Africa has always said that the United States of America is a very important business and strategic partner for the country of South Africa. More importantly, these two countries have made billions of US dollars, despite the fact that South Africa has come under enormous pressure from the United States of America, considering the previous administration from Joe Biden that lambasted the country of South Africa, talking about Simontown, talking about the South Africa's position in terms of non-alignment and South Africa's position with regards to Russia and Ukraine, and more importantly at the United Nations. There are lots of things going on between these two countries. So these initial discussions gives a clear indication that, to an extent at least, the two countries have realized that it is important for them to start talking on few things that will give a clarity from each other's own position. By this delegation traveling to the United States of America, it gives a clear picture on why this relationship is not going anywhere soon. Let me know in the comment section if you think that things are going to tone down regards to this particular initial discussions, or you still think that this is not going to work, or it's just a kind of a bluff from both sides. However, I think that South Africa to an extent and the United States of America have a lot to gain working together, but from an aspect of a win-win partnership, because the Russians are watching, the European Unions are watching, partners, and more importantly China of all is watching. Let me know in the comment section what you think. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.